Good afternoon, everybody. Chuck Carstensen, Remax Results. This is going to be a short podcast with my real estate market predictions, update on my predictions. And a lot of times when we're doing the What Happening in Real Estate in Minnesota show that I do with the team, we'll cover some of these things. I've covered most of this in the past, but sometimes people haven't listened to it or forget or like, oh, hear what's happening in the news. So they're thinking, there's something different happening than before or anything you predicted. And honestly, I don't think anything I predicted is much different than I said, other than I think the market shifted, probably peaked in June. And I would have thought it maybe peaked in July, August, September, and we'd have had another month or 2 or 3 months. But that was probably the peak of the market, early June, as far as the actual accepted offers. And then a lot of those accepted offers have now closed in July or, recently. So a lot of people are wondering what's happened to the real estate market. You hear in the news, the market's shifting. If a realtor, every real estate coach in the world is like, oh, real estate market shift, please sign up for my coaching services or whatever they do. Like, you can't survive without them. And coaching's great. So I'm not saying if you have a business, you shouldn't have a coach. You probably should have a coach. But it's very interesting how things get, put out to the world and what happens. So, for example, Minnesota real estate market predictions. If you watched any or listened to any of our What's Happening in Minnesota real estate shows, I said that, we'd probably see a little bit of a decrease in the second half of the year, a little bit of a slowdown, and I do fully expect that. Now, one thing I want to be more specific on, which you can only really get more specific in current times. And that's why we do that other show, that extended version, every 2-3 months to get everybody up to date. But it's summer and getting people's schedules together are tough. So what I've been sharing with a few sellers, new people I met, obviously some buyers I'm talking to, but I haven't put this out on video yet, is, the market peaked in June. That means that probably people who've gotten big multiple offers in June, some of them pay top dollar. The market is not bubbling, bursting, whatever you might hear from some people. There are people making predictions. It's going to bubble. It's going to burst. The economy's in a recession. The economy is officially, technically, in a recession because we had 2 straight quarters of the GDP, gross domestic product, decreasing. I think one of the quarters was like 0.9% decrease and one was like a 1.1 decrease. So not like some horrible big decreasing numbers, but a little bit negative side of things. So there are some boiling things economy-wise that could cause not great overall economics. But the number one thing I want to remind people of, when the economy goes into a recession, I think 2 of the last 7 times home prices have went down. One of them was obviously 2008-9, that era, which a lot of people remember. And the housing was what caused the recession. It wasn't the recession caused housing to go down. Literally, the housing bubble and all those goofy loans they're doing and everybody could get a loan caused the recession. The other times when just the regular economy has caused the recession, housing normally keeps going up, normal appreciation, somewhat goes up higher, and maybe one time it went down like 2%. So I might be saying then, good, yep, my realtor's been saying it's not going down. Well, you got to understand this. It went up about 15% in a lot of areas, and real estate's local, but general, about 15% earlier this year, and then other parts of the, other parts, the last couple of years went up a lot. So real estate's went up a lot in the last 2 years. So if real estate went up 15%, let's say in the first half of the year, and then let's just say it went down 10% in the second half of the year over year appreciation is still 5%. Homes went up 5% this year. That's what the report will be whenever they do this report end of the year, potentially. I said this on one of our What's Happening in Minnesota real estate podcasts, or gave an example of this. So I do firmly believe prices, and we've already seen this, are decreasing in the second half of the year, but not in some major way that you shouldn't buy a house. In fact, they've already decreased. Here's why. For example, we had some houses that we list. Let's just say I had one that I listed at 270,000, and I told the people it'd get bid up a little bit, and it went for 300,000. Okay, depending how you want to do the math, 10% increase, let's say, over the listing price, but probably a 15% increase over what it would have sold for 15 months ago. But the value of the home, see, for example, people would put no appraisal clause, or I'll pay this price if it appraises for the listing price. So if it appraised for 270, they're willing to pay 300. The value of the home was 270, but people paid 300. So the percentage that economically you calculated at it is, yeah, that's an increase. But the actual value of the home wasn't 300,000, it was 270. So some people just decided to pay more than the value of the home, which makes the numbers, when they go a little bit down, a little bit of reset, sound like, oh, it's going down in the news or the media, or your uncle or somebody be like, houses went down 10%. No, that was their value. Somebody just chose to pay 10% over appraised value, and now they're just going for appraised value. A lot of it is that. A lot of the decrease, that's an example, a lot of the decrease that we're going to see in the second half of the year is just people paying the actual value instead of no appraisal clause, raise the price higher than the value. That's a lot of the decrease. That's really what it is. And then some of it, there's now more homes on the market. Interest rates went a little bit higher and people got spooked, and then they hear what's happening in the news or whatever's happening in the economy, and they get a little more spooked. But just so you know, the Fed did raise the rates, the basis rates last week, but the interest rates for mortgages went down. Like the mortgages, and some people probably can be under 5% again. They went up over 6%, slowly drifted down, and now I'd have to check them again, but like under 5%, around 5%, slightly over 5%. So basically the interest rates are lower. Key point here, the Fed can play with the numbers as long as they want, for the most part, to keep the housing where it should be. I think almost everybody could agree that housing went way too high in the last 2 years. So the actual reset is just to get it more down to the normal curve, the normal increase. Normal appreciation is 1% to 4%. Over the years of real estate, that's what it is. And yes, we had that big dip and then went back up and went up higher from 2009 till what it really pumped out to the peak here in June. So it's going to be normal appreciation. I've said this on shows, probably not going to see a big decrease, a year over year decrease of a major amount, like 10%, even probably 5%, till middle 2030s. That was my prediction the last several times I've made predictions. Nothing's changed there. What I wanted to bring out, though, is because it went up higher than you'd think, say 15%, that it could decrease like 10% or 12% in the second half of the year. And some of that's already happened. I just explained how and why that's happened. Then it's still a year over year appreciation. And it just happened kind of quickly, I think, although there are houses getting bid up, multiple offers, and going probably for those, May, June prices. But for the most part, sellers just got to reset their expectation to a good price, a better price than before. And the worst case scenario I am telling people they'll see is look back to May, June, April, May, June, spring 2021. The worst case prices reset to then. And if you would just have that conversation a year plus ago and thought, God, these prices are crazy high, and you were a seller, you think, wow, these are great prices. If you're a buyer, like, these are high prices, but the interest rates are lower. Now, if you're a buyer and you're like trying to feel like, oh, should I wait because it's going to bubble or crash? Honestly, I think most of the decrease has already just happened, and the next round of decrease isn't enough to not buy. It's not enough. You should live where you want to live. And some sellers will get you that slightly decreased price because you can negotiate now on some homes. You can actually negotiate. And some sellers will still get their prices and get a little bit more because they've got it dialed in. It's the right timing, right location, right people like it, right staging, those kind of things. So to summarize my predictions, just like I've said before on all the Minnesota real estate shows, you're going to see normal appreciation for the next several years. However, we've already hit a decrease. Just it's a phantom decrease because the people that bid them way too high or high, whatever happened. And now it's like, boom, it just kind of, now you don't normally get that much, right? Like that on many, many houses. And then the little bit of tapering that could happen, depending on how the Fed handles actual mortgage interest rates, whether you think they have bearing or not on it, seems like they kind of do. If they did spike them up to like 7%, then we'd see a further decrease. It would for sure 100% threaten that May 2021 price prediction. But also, since so much of the decrease, I think, inherently has happened, you're not going to see a ton more decrease, especially if they keep the interest rates around 5% like they are now instead of 6%. It's going to level out right now, making it a normal market for buyers and sellers. Sellers, you still get a good price. Buyers, you can actually try to negotiate a house, some of the time, or at least get them home for the price or a little bit under. So when you're thinking about buying, do not think it's going to bubble. It's going to bubble. It's going to go down 30%. No. Now, another thing I should point out, when there's an inflationary economy, houses almost always go up because they're a great hedge against inflation. So that's why some people predict they're not going down at all, because housing's always goes up when there's inflation. It's a tangible object item and it wouldn't go down. And that's why some people say buy gold when there's inflation, although people buy like the fool's gold, the cryptocurrencies, and that's went obviously way down. And I don't have any of that, but I get trying that, so I don't have any of that. But it went up too quickly, too hot, too high. So that's why I'm saying there is going to be a second half decrease in prices here. It just over ballooned a little bit too quickly and it's settling in. So that's why I give you the decrease here. And depending how the government handles interest rates, like I said, could 2023 be a decrease year, like a slight 2% down year? Yes, I'm going to say it could be. It'll probably be an increase year by just 1 to 4%, 2023. But it could be like one of those 2% decrease years. And again, if you've ever followed any of our What's Happening in Minnesota Real Estate Show podcast, I said it was going to pretty much flatten out and be across the board for several years, at best normal appreciation, but also means when you have normal appreciation over 12, 15 years, you're going to have a couple decline years. Next year could be like a 2% decline year. It's not enough to notice where you won't actually buy a house. Like, oh, they went down 2%. I'm going to hold out and make my landlord rich. Oh, prices might go down 2%. I'm going to not like where I live and hate where I live and be depressed because I live where I don't want to live. You should live where you want to live. So 2% won't hold you back. 5% shouldn't hold you back. The greatest of the percentage is already kind of watching. It's just, it's not as clear because some sellers are still getting the price and some sellers are getting, the snooze button. Nobody's liking it. So it's a little bit of a confusing time for buyers because they hear these stats on the TV, and I don't like to run these as long on my own podcast, but I got a couple more minutes. For example, our economists, and this is how they blow up the numbers. Pending sales are down 8%. So 8% decline in pending sales means like if there was 100 sales last June, there's now 92. Doesn't sound horrible, right? Okay, 8 sales less. And as a realtor, that means there's 8 less sales to go around for all the realtors out there, right? That's really what it means. It doesn't really affect buyers and sellers a whole lot. It helps buyers a little bit because there's probably more inventory than last year. And sellers, it hurts because it's not still going up, but really, did you think it was still going to keep going up, up, and up? But what the economist was saying is it was predicted to be a 2% decline in pending sales, and it went 8% decline. Should I do this differently? That's a 400% off their estimation. So instead of just like, oh, that's 6 less units for 100 units, they're like, it's 400% lower. And then somebody hears it 400% lower in pending sales and they lose their shit or something. I don't know what they do. There's going to be less sales in a recession shifting market, because people, we've said this before, have the lower interest rates that they bought or refinanced at. So it's less motivation. Oh, I have a 2.8 interest rate. Let's go get a 5.3 interest rate and upgrade the house. The numbers just don't balance. People are staying in their houses longer then. Oh, I refinanced at 2.9%, or like me, 1.99% on a 15-year loan. Yeah, let's make a major move or a minor move. Nah, let's just stay here. Now, I live where I want to live. I don't want to move. But the people who want to live where they want to live and don't live what they want to live, they're going to move. If you're buying and selling in the same market, you're buying and selling in the same market. Worth moving. If you're paying astronomical rents keep going up, and you can afford a house, and you're going to live there a while, you should buy. There's life changes, death, divorce, aging out of the home. People are going to move. People are buying and selling. It's just going to be less transactions. The deep breath of the market decreasing in the second half, but we're already seeing it. So if you're like a seller who's like, I'm going to wait for October to list, you probably got the decrease. You hit it, sorry, but also if you were prepped going into it, it's not even going to hurt because like, I could have got that much maybe, but I still got a lot. So I don't think anybody should freak out about the market decreasing a little bit. The market's shifting. That's more for realtors. Less sales to go around. Sorry, realtors, less sales to go around. And for buyers and sellers, especially buyers, more opportunity, a little bit more negotiable. For sellers, you got to be prepared. People are going to ask for inspection items to be fixed, and they weren't as much in the past, recent history at least. And sellers should expect some buyers ask for sellers paid closing costs again. And we've talked about these on our show. When we have a full show, we'll talk about this again. This is my mini get the predictions out. If you just joined us or like, what the hell's Chuck talking about? He's talking about all these things. The summary is not really different than I predicted in the past. You watched the show. The only more specific prediction is the worst case scenario. I think the prices reset to spring 2021 prices. Obviously, we're August 1st, 2022. They did peak up about 15% in some areas, give or take, a little bit more, a little bit less. And we're going to lose, I think, about 10% of that back if we haven't already. So it's still going to be a 5% appreciation year. Some areas an 8% appreciation year. Probably some areas a 3% appreciation year, depending on how much they went up. So it's still a good appreciation year, a normal or better than normal appreciation year, which I think coming into the year, that was the number that was projected. And then is next year going to be a decrease year? Next year has a chance, probably a little bit greater than I would have thought, to be a slight decrease year, like meaning 0% appreciation. I would say that's like 25% odds. 2% depreciation, that's about 25% odds. Then 1 to 4% appreciation, 25%. That's my odds. I'm just divvying out the odds makers. You know, if you go to Vegas and they have lines, then above that and below that, I think there's 25% that could be split either way, depending on what the economy does. But it's got not a 50% chance, a less than 50% chance of being a decreased year by a little bit. So I do think next year, 2023, will be like the 1 or 2% appreciation, but it's got a better chance than many, many years to be a 1 or 2% decrease. And that should not stop anybody from buying a house. It just means if you bought a house this year and wanted to move next year, you're not going to move for a win. It'll be a loss. That's really what it means. Yeah, Lori just commented. Lori's one of our best watchers. Yeah, I don't have any sidekicks tonight, Lori. So I just kind of spur of the moment doing this. So that, again, is not much difference than what I'm projecting all along, just narrowing the focus of it. So I get it out there. So because on my last show, I asked what makes a real estate expert, what makes an expert? And I said, one of the things is it's making accurate predictions. So I'd really love to see how accurate my predictions are. And nobody's really explaining the predictions like I am. Like, you can't really find this anywhere. Nobody wants to. It's like, oh, I better not put my predictions out there. I've been doing it for a long time, and we'll see how accurate this is. And then I feel like when you do this and are accurate, it does mean I can point back to this 6 months, a year and a half from now and say, here, this is what I projected. Did the other people you talked to give you those projections, and they probably didn't. They don't want to tell you. I like to give you my projections, my predictions. They're projections and predictions, really. So, all right. Thanks for watching, Lori. There was a few other people that pop in and off. Obviously, this recording goes on the Real Life Impact Podcast. You can listen to it, share it, download it, call me, email me, let me know what your thoughts are. And thanks for tuning in tonight. Take care.